All right, ladies and gents, welcome to our final lesson in Unit 1 on Government Colonies and Revolution on the Articles of Confederation. So let's put this into some historical context. So let's remember that we started our unit with colonization and colonial regions of what is currently the United States and our 13 original colonies, and we began our journey as colonies built by our mother country, Great Britain, in order for us to provide Great Britain with raw materials and some resources that Great Britain could not procure on her own. So as time went on, the rule of absolute or constitutional monarchs, neither of which were very well received by the colonists as we went along, and as a result of French and Indian War debt, there was a lot of nonsense that occurred, and we ended up cutting our political ties with Great Britain through the Declaration of Independence. So now, after the Revolutionary War has ended, and the vast majority of all British soldiers have left the continental United States, it is time for us to create some type of government. And that begins as the Articles of Confederation. So basically, the colonies are free. Now what? And on the first bullet on your note sheet, let's go ahead and write down, must make a new system of government. Must make a new system of government. Okay, so this new government, let's make sure all these three things are paraphrased nicely or shortened up and abbreviated as much as possible. Our new government, we are no longer ruled by a monarchy. We are no longer colonies. We are now states. We are the United States of America. It's getting legit, okay? So now what do we do since we've gotten rid of a monarchy? We can't have anarchy. We can't have the purge running around. So how do we go from a constitutional monarchy and being a colony of that to being our own set of free states, and to do so successfully? Okay, in order to create some type of government to have on file, I guess, as we transition out of the Revolutionary War, the Founding Fathers get together in 1778 and create a confederacy. All right, so in the margin on the left-hand side of your note sheet, let's make sure that we make a note that confederacy is just a group of states. A group of states. Because remember, we're no longer colonies. We are now established. We are the 13 states. Okay, so let's think about this. You do not have to write this. Just listen and assess. While the British were still in the colonies, well, remember, Great Britain, the king. While the king is still in the colonies, which level of government, not which branch, which level of government has the most power? Federal, state, or local? And I hope you have some type of answer sorted out in your head, because there is a question coming up. All right, now I go to this cool thing called the pendulum of federalism. All right, so if you've ever seen a grandfather clock operate, the pendulum is a piece that swings back and forth. And that's the one that you hear the clock ticking all the time, and it kind of denotes the seconds for you. All right, there is a pendulum that leads to federalism. So if you will draw this in your note sheet underneath the part that says the pendulum, and leave a little space at the bottom so we can draw ourselves an arrow. So on the left-hand side, we have our government underneath King George III. So we can go ahead and draw a little crown over here on the left-hand side underneath the bottom of your arrow. All right, the federal government is too strong under King George III, and the states, aka us, the colonies, have very little power over our own free will and choices and how the government works and its systems of operation. Okay, so we are a very reactionary people here in the United States. So our reaction to that is to give the states all the power. Since we're afraid of the federal government having too much power, we decide to give the states too much power. This is like when you're little and you're at home and your mom has finally, or auntie or grandma, whoever you live with, has finally given you the choice to stay at home and do what you want to do, and you're like, yes, freedom, all right, and you watch all the cartoons that you're not supposed to, and you eat like 15,000 grams of sugar, and you're like, man, this is great, there's no rules, right? And you do the exact opposite of what you are supposed to be doing. Okay, that's exactly what we do as a government, except now, instead of us watching the wrong things on Cartoon Network, we decide now we're just going to give all the power to the states. We don't trust the federal government any longer. We're giving this all to the states. So underneath where it says federal government too strong, let's draw like a curvy, like a smiley face, like the bottom of the smiley face, and let's draw a curvy arrow over here to state government too strong. And let's end the arrow right here underneath state. Okay, and now we're going to talk about this cause and effect, or action and reaction, that we do. All right, so on the left-hand side, there should be a T-chart on your note sheet. Okay, hold on just a second and I'll show you. All right, so under here where it says problem and reaction in the AOC on your note sheet, I want you to draw just a line down the middle here. All right, so just a nice line, make a T-chart, and make sure you title it just like this. Okay, so your note sheet should end up looking like my screen right now when we're finished. Okay, there are 7 bullets total. 7 bullets total. So if you got large handwriting, today is not your day. I'm very sorry. Okay, on the left side, we're going to start out with the Tyrant King, otherwise known as KG3 or King George III. All right, our reaction here during the AOC, we are going to abbreviate Articles of Confederation, our first form of government, AOC. Because we're afraid of this Tyrant King, we choose to have no executive leader. What would now be our version of a president. We did not have one during our first form of government. The second colonial issue we had with the British monarchy is taxation without representation in the legislature. So when we're talking about people who make laws, because remember, a legislature is a group of people who make laws, there is no taxation without there should be no taxation without representation according to us. People are slapping taxes on the colonies left and right, and no one in Parliament is speaking on their behalf. So the reaction here, we're just not going to have taxes in general. And you're like, yes, no taxes, until you realize that the federal government is broke and has no money to pay for things. Okay, so this whole there's no rules sounds great on paper, maybe not so much in practice. Okay. This one, this second bullet this third bullet right here on the right-hand side, each state represented, that matches with this second one. Okay, so if you were to number these, this Tyrant King would be 1, no executive leader would be 1, taxation without representation would be 2, and both of these bullets would be number 2. Okay, so each state gets represented in the legislature, including Georgia. Go Georgia. The prisoners are finally now free. Fantastic. Okay, the third colonial issue is that we cannot trade with other countries. We have to stop in a British port first, because of which act? I hope you remember, because there's a question coming up. And the reaction here is that there is no regulation of trade. No regulation of trade. All right. The fourth issue that we have with the British monarchy is that we cannot move past the proclamation line. So you can probably guess what happens next. We're all moving west. Okay, in what's called the Northwest Ordinance. The word ordinance just means a type of law. Just a type of law. Okay, let's put a giant star beside Northwest Ordinance, all right, or highlight, dramatically mark, squiggly line, whatever you'd like to do. And let's make a little note somewhere on your note sheet, maybe in another color. If you need to go ahead and reach out for a highlighter, marker, or colored pencil, now would be a great time to do so. It's the only real success of the AOC. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of pieces, a lot of language that comes into the AOC that we use in our current Constitution. But the only good thing about this new government where there's no rules is people being able to move west. People need to spread out. They need space. Okay, so our next one over here, our next colonial issue is unfair trials. Okay, if you decided you were going to go out and do something stupid as a colonist, you would probably be arrested, shipped out over to England. We're talking like a 2-month journey on a boat in handcuffs, all right, over to Great Britain to sit for a trial with people that you have never seen before. You have no idea where you are. You probably don't have any family in Great Britain at this point because they're so far removed culturally from Great Britain. Okay, so since there are unfair trials, we're just not going to have any courts. We're just not doing it. We're not here for it. Which sounds fantastic, until an event shows us how drastically not so great this Articles of Confederation nonsense is. Okay, and then on the left-hand side again, we're quartering troops in our house with no consent. Since we're mad about this military, what do you think is going to happen? We're just not going to have a national military. We're done. We're over it. Okay, no national military. All right, and this is definitely a problem. Okay, and a side note here, when we talk about regulating trade with the Navigation Acts, let's make sure that we understand the difference between interstate and foreign trade. Okay, so you can write the answer, not the question, just the answer in the margin over on the left. Okay? Interstate is between states. All right, just like an interstate highway goes between states. 95 stretches all the way up to Pennsylvania and goes all the way down to Florida. And foreign trade is with other nations, and we should know that already, but just a nice refresher for you there. All right, so this Shays Rebellion stuff, all right, this is the guy, and this is the action that shows us how terrible this government actually is full out. This man named Daniel Shays, he's a veteran, and he's a farmer, okay? When we say veteran farmer, this means that he did fight in the American Revolution, okay? He watched people around him die in order to receive this new government that was supposed to be so great. All right, he leads a rebellion against the government because he is paying too many taxes. And you might be thinking like, Ms. Hurst, that is not correct because you just said we had no national taxes. That's true, I did say that, because Daniel Shays is paying an inordinate amount of state taxes. Since our national government doesn't collect taxes and they're broke, the states are left holding the bag when it comes to making money. So they have to tax the crap out of people in order to get anything accomplished at the federal level. Okay, so Daniel Shays is losing his farm, he's losing his house, everything that he owns. He's going to wind up homeless because of all these taxes. So he decides he's going to lead a rebellion against the government. He burns down an arsenal in the middle of Massachusetts. Okay, I don't know if y'all know what an arsenal is, but if you've ever played like Call of Duty or whatever, when you go into that little random building where you get all your weapons from, that's an arsenal. So an arsenal is just a weaponry building. That's all. Okay, so when he does this whole exploding of nonsense, it reveals almost every single issue with the AOC. Okay, so it shows all these issues, and that's the last thing you have to write at the bottom, issues with the AOC. Okay, basically, he shows us that we have no national taxes, and he gets away with it because we have no national courts. Nobody comes to stop him because we have no national military. Okay, there are all kinds of things that are wrong with the AOC, and Daniel Shays and his little nonsense show us this. Okay, all reactions to the British monarchy, except for the Northwest Ordinance, were issues with the AOC. Okay, we realize now that the national government is way too weak. Fixing it is going to be difficult. All right, so we're going to have some kind of a meeting overall to fix this problem. Okay, it took 13 out of 13 states to change the law and 9 out of 13 to add anything to the AOC. All right, getting that many people to agree on something is extremely difficult and is not going to be great for your government overall. So there are a lot of issues with the AOC, and this is going to lead us directly into our next unit on the United States Constitution. So congratulations, everyone. This has been the conclusion of the Articles of Confederation and our content for Unit 1.